Welcome to Facebook Live. I'm Reverend Greg Dorst. And what a beautiful place to be on a Wednesday night. I am so happy to be here. You know, I did my beautiful opening just a moment ago with this, thinking that I was on live. I was going to give you an extra couple of minutes, you know, just go into something really cool, a poem that I'm going to be memorizing. And it turns out that you weren't on with me, so you are now, and I know that. It's great to have you here. So I'm here with my beautiful wife, who is acting as technician tonight, and she's going to be writing down some of the comments. If you want to ask a question or something, she'll be able to see that, and she can ask me to respond to it. And I'm here with our beautiful dog, and his name's Harley, and he's about 8 inches high, and we named him Harley because we wanted him to feel like he was a tough guy. So, and that's never really happened. I mean, he's never really felt like that, I don't think. But he'll be wandering around, and once in a while he might even get in the picture. It would make my heart sing if he did. You know, I want to talk about that for just a second too, that the whole thing about what we're doing here, what we're trying to do, what we are expecting to bring to you. You know, this isn't a service that is going to try and recreate a service in a sanctuary. That's trying to recreate a service in a meeting place, a normal meeting place with a band and, you know, with canned laughter or a couple of people sitting in the background that might act as an audience. This is something different. It's something out of the box. It's something for you that's not intended to be the old, but to be the new. And so I want to be able to bring that to you guys with all its warts, with all the difficulties that we have, with all the problems we might have with a sideways camera or other issues that are going on. I want you to get this new thing that's happening. And I think that one of the new things that I want you to do is something that I've been doing for the last couple of days. And I found something for me to memorize for next week, because I said that memorization is a new spiritual tool for me, you know, in my toolbox. I have this poem by Hafiz that I'm going to be memorizing for next week. I just think it's beautiful. It's not very long, so it'll be pretty easy for me. And it goes like this. This is the kind of friend you are. Without making me realize my soul's anguished history, you slip into my house at night, and while I'm sleeping, you silently carry off all my suffering and my sordid past in your beautiful hands. Oh, that is so cool. I mean, if that were about our God, that would be absolutely fabulous. If it's about a person, it's even more fabulous. Slipping into my house at night, which is really into my consciousness. You slip into my consciousness at night while I'm sleeping, and you carry off all my suffering and sordid past in your beautiful hands. All the things that have been bothering me, all the things about my life that don't seem to work, you carry on out with you. And Jackie, my wife and technician, is that very person. So this is to you, okay? This is to you. And next week I won't have to use the paper. This is the kind of friend you are. Without making me realize my soul's anguished history, you slip into my house at night, and while I'm sleeping, you silently carry off all my suffering and sordid past in your beautiful hands. Thank you for that. Thank you. So, yeah, this is meant to be different. And so here we go with different. You know, I am a fan of a guy by the name of Pete Rollins. Peter Rollins he's an Irish philosopher and theologian, and he's kind of a comedian too, and I really like his stuff. He's a writer that is interested in parables, so he writes new age parables, new parables for this day, and he has done some shows on YouTube where he talks about these parables, and there's one in particular that I like a lot. And it has to do with tradition. You know, I was just talking about the traditions of always wanting to bring the church experience, and so we try and recreate that rather than bring something new. Well, this parable kind of, you know, takes a club to that idea. You know, it kind of knocks you on the side of the head. See, Pete Rollins is what he calls a radical theologian. I mean, he is a true believer in faith, but he believes that faith is a way to move in the world, to be in relationship with the world, not a set of beliefs about the world. So what he believes is that we ought to live faithfully, as if we are faith, and takes into account this idea that the faith of God is the way we move through life, understanding and accepting that what is. And so I really like that, and I like this parable that I'm going to tell you. It starts out like this. There's a priest who got a cat, and he did a morning mass every morning for his people. And he would go out to the lawn for his morning mass and notice that the cat was just all over the place. I mean, he was creating all sorts of havoc, and so he tied the cat to a tree. And every morning, this priest would come out with his new cat on a leash, and he would tie that cat to a tree. And that cat, of course, grew, through the years, and the priest grew older through the years, and he finally died. And so when the new priest started to do the masses in the morning, his followers still brought out the old priest's cat and tied it to a tree. And then when the cat died, they bought a new cat and they started tying it to the tree for mass. And so people would ask, why is this? Is there some sort of spiritual significance to tying a cat to the tree? And nobody knew, after many, many years of having done this, what that spiritual significance might be. But we know that it's tradition. And so it's interesting how that works. We do so many things in life today, even, that we don't know why we're doing it. We don't know where that came from. But we do it because we've always done it. Well, now we're faced with a world where we have to do new things. Some people bristle at that. These these new things are really interesting for me, because I used to drive about 4,000 miles a month to go to different meetings with people, to meet people who needed me, and to consult with groups and individuals. And that was a lot of driving. And when I would drive on the road, I would think to myself, is this ever going to get any better with this traffic? I mean, it's almost untenable. It's almost impossible to get around. And it just can't seem to get any worse, but it does. And where's that going to take us in the future? And today, I haven't driven my car in 2 weeks. It's been sitting out there. I haven't even gotten in it, but I have still met with every single one of those groups, and I've done it by Zoom or by Skype. I've still met with every person that needed to meet with me by Zoom meeting, or even if necessary by telephone. There are some people that don't have the capability to understand how to make that work yet, but I'm sure that they will. And so even though my car has been parked out there in the garage for 2 weeks and not driven anywhere, I have seen more people and hopefully touched more lives in that period of time than I did with 2 weeks on the road. I mean, it's an incredible thing, but that's change. See, it's change, and I'm ready for that. In fact, I'm ready for whatever comes, because this is the reason why I've been doing this stuff for so long. The reason why I got to tell you, I'm sober. You probably know that. A lot of people on this Facebook Live know me as a sober person. Been sober for 22 years, and I know the drill. I know when things get tough, I need a meeting. I know that I need to work with others. I need to be of service, and it's a wonderful thing. That's preparation for difficult times. Well, I became a minister and started working with how we change the world from within, and we see a new and different world without, and how to teach people how to relieve themselves of discord and misery and suffering and see something new right in front of their eyes. I've been doing this for a long, long time, and it struck me and Jackie that this is the reason why we did this. This moment right now is the reason why we've done this. To bring this to people in new and different ways, to inspire people to see the world differently, to be able to relax into it and accept and surrender to this idea that we have to be away from each other for a while, And to do that is actually an act of faith. I mean, to step into this newness and not fight the old. You know, because some people fight for the old so drastically, and they just can't let go of it. I mean, I was reading where there's a church service that occurs with a large congregation in Louisiana, and they refuse to not show up in person, even though they're taking the chance of not only infecting each other, but taking an infection back to their families. And I don't know what the reasoning behind that is. I just don't understand that. Maybe it's to try and push forward a public display of faith, but it's happening, and it belies the newness that's set forth in this world. It belies the things that can unfold in a rich and wonderful manner with this new thing that we're doing. And I want to step into that today, that rich and new thing that we're doing, because that's really what Easter is about. I mean, that's exactly what Easter is about. The newness that springs forth from something that existed. And here's my view of this. You know, this is an absolute magnificent metaphor for the dying to the old and bringing about the new in a much greater and richer fashion. You know, Jesus ministered to the people of his day, and he performed healings and brought a brand new way of looking at things. And in some ways, you know, he pushed against the old established norms, certainly. But when he died on Good Friday on the cross, he became a much bigger Christ than he was as Jesus. He became at that moment able to bring this to the worlds to come, to the generations to follow, that he didn't have to be there in order for these principles to spring forth. And so the truth is that dying to what was happening in the moment made a much greater impact for the world and even the universe. And so it's a wonderful story. It's absolutely magnificent. And it's happening every single day in every one of our lives. You know, if we just allow ourselves to die to the last moment so that a new moment can spring forward, we allow ourselves to recognize and know that church service, you know, that I used to do on Wednesday night was fantastic in that sanctuary, which was beautiful. It's just not happening. And so let's bring something brand new. Let's bring our hearts wide open to something brand new and just know that it is the next iteration of what's necessary in this world. You know, because I can stand up here in my own house and I can be kind of filled with all sorts of ways to make mistakes, you know, in front of lots and lots and lots of people. You know, but that's okay. I love the spirituality of imperfection. I love bringing the real me, warts and all. And I love having this opportunity to stand up here and talk about these things that matter. So I believe that we were made for this moment. I believe that all of the things that we've done to help ourselves move forward, become aware of our spirituality, that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. I believe all of those things that we have had faith in, that we are, you know, united with God, that God is our strength and our source. All of those things we believed in are the things that we're relying upon right now. And we should say to ourselves, hey, we know the drill. You know, we've been given an opportunity to use these things right now. You know, to develop a new and rich self, something new and magnificent within us is springing forth. And I love that. And so to me, that's the essence of Easter. I mean, that's the Easter message. You know, the reason why Easter is so important for our idea of the vernal equinox, too, is that all of these plants are springing forward. New flowers are popping up. You know, seedlings are finally showing their green selves. And, you know, this is the newness of spring. It's the promise of the resurrection. It is the cleaning of the old and bringing about the new. And, you know, that's one of the reasons why I just love the empty cross. You know, if you've ever noticed, there are two different types of crosses that you'll see. You'll see the one cross where Jesus is being crucified and actually on the cross, and then you'll see the empty cross. And of course, we are reminded of the suffering with the cross where Jesus is actually on the cross. We're reminded of the suffering that he went through for all to see, for the world to be able to utilize and engage as a healing moment. But the empty cross, which I really, really like, is the cross where Jesus has already been resurrected. He's not on that cross anymore. I mean, there's a newness that's happened. He has sprung from the cross into a resurrected life force which encompasses all that is. So, I have this saying, and you can join along with me if you will, because whenever I say the words "all that is," it reminds me of the unity in all that is. And I love this. This is a statement of unity. There's only one thing.
There's only one thing.
It may look like more than one thing.
It may feel
like more than one thing. But it's only one thing.
It's only one thing.
Expressing as you.
Expressing as you.
Expressing as me.
Expressing as me.
And everything we see. Yeah, that statement of unity is easier to say than it is to understand. But what that really means is that we're all made out of this God stuff. I am that which you are. We are much closer than we think, being made out of the same stuff. In metaphysics, we see things as being from this singular space, no matter whether they are seen as harmful to us or helpful to us. They come from this same source. They come from this thing, and we can call it God or Spirit or the universe. Whatever it is you want to call it, you can call it that. But everything that we see, everything that we know, everything that we are springs from this singular source as that source. It's kind of like Pete Rollins saying that this faith thing is a way of being in the world. Well, understanding unity is a way of being in the world. And so you have brothers and sisters that are even closer than that. Jesus said that I am closer than breath, nearer than breath, closer than hands and feet. And what he's talking about is that kind of unity, that I am you. I am that which you are. And I want you to remember that by eating this bread and drinking this wine, so that you know just how close we really are. And so this idea that we are unified is deep. I mean, really, really deep. And so in order to recognize and understand what love is, you have to recognize and understand that you are love, see? I mean, love is not separate from you. Love is you. And so we also know that love is the presence of God. And so if you want to be in the presence of God, then you must be in love. You must love not only your neighbor, but love all things. That's how you love God. You love all things. And so, this Easter time is really special for me because I recognize the newness. And I recognize and understand that this that we're in right now is a beautiful newness that represents for me that Easter experience. So, I have been engaged in some things that I've really enjoyed. And one of the things I was engaged in today was a Zoom conference with a friend of mine. And we started talking about, we really got off the subject a little bit, and we started talking about a book, Of Mice and Men. And this book is one of my favorites. Of Mice and Men is a book written by John Steinbeck, and it is an oft-told tale in a short book of a couple of guys during the Great Depression. And one man named George was the smart one, and Lenny, the big, strong, dumb one who needed George's help in order to move through the world, present some really interesting and unique principles to talk about. And this friend and I talked about one of those principles today, and that principle is the idea of what's yours to do. And so we talked about how this book by John Steinbeck is just filled with the idea of what is yours to do. Everything that you see unfold in that book points to that. You know, this is yours to do. You must do it, even though it's hard. And you know, that isn't just a story worth reading in a John Steinbeck novel. It's a story that appears again and again and again and again in the Bible. What is ours to do? It's a story that appears again and again and again in our lives. You know, sometimes we push things off and say, I'm not going to do that. That's not what I want to do today. But it's really yours to do. And sometimes we have other people do these things that are really ours to do. And are we missing out on that grand connection? You know, this thing that may be hard in front of us is something that we need to step into. So this moment is ours to do. It's not to push off on somebody else. It's not to say there's blame to be attached to somebody. This moment, this now moment is ours to live. It's ours to be the best we can possibly be. And what's really arising from this, from some of these difficulties, is this idea that we are greater now than we were before. Because now we're in a space where we're called to be of service. We truly are called to be of service to others. The first way we're called to be of service is to not infect other people, is to not be a carrier, is to not step into a situation where you might hurt somebody else because you weren't thinking about what this moment really is all about. You know, you might be a person that says, I'm going to demonstrate that I have total faith that I'll never get sick. And so I'm going to walk around and do this and I'm going to do that. I'm going to interact with these people, when in fact what's really happening is you're setting up a circumstance where you might be spreading the virus. You know, ours to do today is not that. Ours to do today is to accept, surrender, and move into that space where we can be helpful in the moment that truly is, not the moment that you want it to be. And so we're learning to be of service. That's the first way we're learning to be of service, right? We go namaste to that one, right? I recognize the God in you and you recognize the God in me on that one. And so the second way we can be of service is not to let people be alone. And that doesn't mean we go there. Doesn't mean we knock on their door. It may mean that we give them a telephone call. It may mean that we hook them up on a Skype call or Zoom. Or, just find out if there's something that we can facilitate for them, that maybe send them something, have them sent something, or make sure that a bill is paid, or they have enough money. Make sure that they're in a situation where they're actually safe. You know, we can be of service to so many people. We don't have to see them all the time to be of service. You know, so this is a new moment. This is where we can actually be bigger than we were before, even though we're not on the scene. And so I think that's what we're called to do and to be during this Easter time. You know, to be the Christ in us is emerging right now. The bigger than, you know, the bigger Greg is the Christ in Greg. It's the Christ consciousness. The bigger me now has an opportunity to arise. The bigger me has an opportunity to meet the world, because we have been waiting for this, practicing for this. We have been doing our spiritual practices for years so that we can get through this and help other people to do it as well. You know, I told you I'm a part of another fellowship that immediately stepped forward to set up Zoom meetings so that we could all be together, so that we could do meetings together and talk about the things that we need to talk about in order to not only stay sober, but stay sane. And so I love the way we just all came to each other's rescue so that we could be in community and make this happen. And this is the reason why we're doing this. We're doing this on Wednesday so that we can be in community and make this community thing happen. You know, we're rescuing each other. We're rescuing each other spiritually and even physically. So we're called to be emerging into this greater yet to be. And it's happening now. It's not happening 2 years from now. It's happening now. And so I just want you to know how much I care for you. I want you to know that I believe in us and I love us. And so I'd like you to join me in a an affirmative prayer, something that just nails this home, if you will, please. And you can sink into your seats and take a deep breath, if you will. Just take a moment to connect with this idea, because it's the truth. Sometimes we need to consciously be aware of this truth. And the truth is, God is present right here and right now, wherever you are, not necessarily in my living room, but wherever you are, because this infinite source of power is big enough and powerful enough to be everywhere in its fullness all the time. And that's the infinite nature of God. So God is present right here, right now, where you are, in, around, and through each of us, as us. And the power back of everything we see is the motive power of God. Whatever you want to call this God, if you want to call it Spirit or Jesus or Yahweh or whatever name you have for this God, it doesn't matter. What it is the power back of all things, and all things that we see, hear, feel, know, in the past and in the future. And so that presence right here and right now is us. We are united with it. There is no way to separate from us. And so I recognize and know right now that each of us that have been together tonight knows that we've been together. We can feel one another. We feel one another on that level of love, that plane of love that I talked about, that love that aligns us with God, that connects us with our source and connects us with one another. We are on that plane together. And so I recognize and know and feel that love, and in that love is safety. And in that love is security. And in that love is a knowing that I too am loved. And I know that this absolute knowing that each of you are loved is the truth. It is absolutely the truth. And I want you to feel that love right now, on that plane of love, feeling the love not only coming from me, but coming from all around you. And if there are people with you, it's coming from those people. And if there are animals with you, it's coming from those animals. And if there's just air around you, feel the way it treats you as you hold your hands out. You are in love with all that is. And so I know that we have spent this time together not in vain, but in study and in understanding. That each of us has had the opportunity to learn something new tonight. I have learned something new tonight. You know, sometimes you don't know what it is that you believe until you hear yourself say it. And I know that the truth is that I am divinely protected, divinely guided in love. And so I'm so thankful for this. I'm so thankful for this knowing. I'm thankful for any and all of you out watching this. And I'm thankful for the material that I have learned for so many years that makes me ready for this very, very moment. And so I release these words with that great thanksgiving into this creative force that just says yes to everything. And I release it knowing that it's already done. God hears and knows all that I do. And so I seal it by saying two things. I say, and so it is, and amen, which mean the same thing. And so, absolute shout out to you guys. Here you go. John Morgan, Bobby Noah, Don Marie Galovich, woo, all the way across the country. Sue Haynes, Jan, Sherry Estes, Jorge and Jeffrey, good to see you guys. Harley loves it. Teresa, Pam and Elka, Martha, Monica, Annabelle, Peggy, and I think that we even have some politicians here that I don't even want to mention.
That's just some of the people.
Just some of the people who have been on this Facebook Live tonight. So I feel like Sheriff John, there you are. I love you guys. Thanks so much for spending time. Namaste. Finish.